Crimea is in chaos. Russian civilians and troops are scrambling to escape as Ukraine launches a massive counterstrike. Cities tremble, military bases targeted, and panic spreads. What's happening in Crimea right now could change the war completely. Stay with us to find out the shocking truth. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are witnessing a historic moment in the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict. Reports are flooding in from Crimea, showing that Russian citizens and soldiers are leaving the peninsula in unprecedented numbers. Streets are crowded with cars and buses heading out, airports jammed, and ports overwhelmed by ships attempting to evacuate people. The reason is clear. Ukraine has launched a powerful counterstrike aimed directly at Russian positions in Crimea. Military analysts suggest that this is a coordinated assault, targeting airbases, supply lines, and strategic installations. The Ukrainian military has reportedly used a combination of missile strikes, artillery, and drone attacks to disrupt Russian operations. This sudden offensive has caused panic among local residents, many of whom fear being caught in the crossfire. Social media videos show chaotic scenes at checkpoints, with people carrying belongings and attempting to leave in a hurry. Russian authorities have acknowledged that some military infrastructure has been damaged, though official statements try to downplay the situation. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials warn that this counterattack is just the beginning, emphasizing that Crimea could become a front line if hostilities continue to escalate. The situation is evolving rapidly, and the coming days could decide the fate of this strategic peninsula in the Black Sea. The counterstrike by Ukraine has not only targeted military bases, but also disrupted supply chains vital for Russian forces in Crimea. Satellite images reveal smoke rising from several airfields, with reports confirming the destruction of hangars, fuel depots, and ammunition storage. Ukrainian forces appear to have timed their attacks precisely, taking advantage of vulnerabilities in Russian defense systems. Local residents describe sudden explosions shaking buildings and windows, leading many to leave their homes out of fear. Evacuation centers have been set up, but the influx of people is overwhelming the available facilities. Humanitarian organizations are calling for calm and coordination to prevent panic-induced accidents. Analysts suggest that the counterattack demonstrates Ukraine's growing capability to strike deep within Russian-held territory, signaling a shift in the conflict dynamics. The psychological impact on Russian troops is significant, with morale reportedly declining due to the suddenness and intensity of the strikes. Social media posts show abandoned vehicles along highways, indicating that people are fleeing in haste. Security measures at ports and checkpoints have increased, but officials admit that the sheer volume of evacuees makes control difficult. Experts warn that if the counterstrike continues, Russia might be forced to redeploy troops from other regions to defend Crimea, weakening their positions elsewhere. International observers are closely monitoring the situation, highlighting the strategic importance of Crimea in the Black Sea region. Ukraine's counterstrike has also demonstrated a modern approach to warfare, combining intelligence, precision weaponry, and rapid mobility. Drones have played a crucial role, providing real-time reconnaissance and guiding strikes on high-value targets. Ukrainian forces reportedly identified weak points in Russian defenses, focusing attacks where they could cause maximum disruption with minimal exposure. This strategy has resulted in significant damage to military assets while keeping Ukrainian losses relatively low. In addition to physical destruction, the strikes have created a climate of fear and uncertainty among Russian troops and civilians. Many families are reported to be hiding valuables and preparing emergency evacuation bags, unsure how long the crisis will last. Social media platforms are filled with images of packed roads, crowded trains, and emergency services assisting fleeing residents. Ukrainian officials emphasize that this counterstrike is not only a tactical maneuver, but also a message that Russia's hold on Crimea is increasingly precarious. International experts believe that the operation might influence diplomatic negotiations, potentially encouraging global powers to increase support for Ukraine. The Black Sea region, previously considered relatively secure, has now become a critical theater of war. Economists warn that continued escalation could disrupt trade and energy routes passing through Crimea, affecting global markets. Meanwhile, Russian media attempts to downplay the impact, portraying events as minor setbacks. However, the volume of first-hand reports paints a different picture: a peninsula in panic, facing a challenge it has not encountered since annexation. The human impact of Ukraine's counterstrike in Crimea is profound. Families are being forced to make split-second decisions to flee or seek shelter. Children, the elderly, and those with limited mobility face the greatest danger amid chaotic conditions. Emergency services are stretched thin, attempting to manage traffic jams, injuries, and panic-induced incidents. Hospitals report a surge of people with minor injuries caused by evacuations, such as falls, car accidents, and stress-related health issues. Food and water supplies are running low in certain areas, as panic buying has emptied store shelves. The local economy is severely disrupted, with businesses closing and workers unable to commute. Meanwhile, Russian authorities are attempting to reassure the population, calling for calm and promising protection for those who stay. However, the visible reality of smoke, explosions, and fleeing citizens contradicts official statements, increasing distrust among locals. Analysts warn that prolonged instability in Crimea could create long-term social challenges, including displacement and a refugee crisis. The psychological toll on civilians is immense, with anxiety, fear, and uncertainty dominating daily life. International humanitarian groups are urging aid and logistical support, emphasizing the urgent need for coordinated evacuation plans. In the midst of this turmoil, Ukrainian forces continue to press their counterstrike, demonstrating that the region's security situation is highly unstable and rapidly evolving. The coming hours will be critical in determining whether Crimea stabilizes or faces further escalation. From a military perspective, Ukraine's counterstrike has revealed vulnerabilities in Russia's defensive infrastructure in Crimea. Air defense systems have reportedly failed to intercept several incoming missiles and drones, suggesting gaps in radar coverage or technical malfunctions. Ukrainian forces are using a combination of conventional artillery, precision, guided munitions, and unmanned aerial vehicles to maximize efficiency. Satellite imagery confirms multiple points of impact, including depots, airstrips, and coastal installations. Russian troops stationed in the peninsula are under pressure, facing logistical challenges and the threat of sudden strikes. Commanders are reportedly scrambling to redeploy forces to protect critical areas, which may weaken their positions elsewhere. Military analysts emphasize that controlling Crimea is not just symbolic but strategically vital, as it hosts key naval facilities and access to the Black Sea. The Ukrainian counterstrike, therefore, has strategic significance beyond immediate destruction. It demonstrates Kiev's ability to challenge Russian control, even in supposedly secure regions. Social media footage shows soldiers abandoning equipment or retreating from exposed positions, reflecting the stress and unpredictability induced by the attacks. In addition, communication networks have been disrupted in certain areas, complicating coordination among Russian units. International military experts are closely monitoring the operation, considering how Ukraine's tactics might influence future engagements. If Russia cannot secure Crimea effectively, the balance of power in the Black Sea region could shift dramatically, impacting regional security and global geopolitical calculations. The geopolitical implications of Ukraine's counterstrike in Crimea are far-reaching. This sudden escalation signals to the world that Ukraine is capable of mounting complex operations deep within Russian-occupied territory. Neighboring countries and NATO allies are closely observing the situation, assessing the potential for regional spillover. Some analysts suggest that successful operations in Crimea could embolden Ukraine to press further offensives, potentially reclaiming territories lost earlier in the conflict. Russia, on the other hand, faces a dilemma. Reinforcing Crimea may weaken other fronts, while inaction could undermine domestic credibility and morale among troops. The international community is likely to respond with increased diplomatic pressure, sanctions, or military aid, depending on the unfolding situation. Furthermore, the counterstrike affects global trade routes passing through the Black Sea, as ports and shipping lanes may be temporarily disrupted. Energy markets could also feel the impact if infrastructure or transit corridors are affected. Humanitarian organizations stress the importance of protecting civilians, as panic and displacement may lead to crises extending beyond Crimea. Media coverage worldwide highlights the urgency and unpredictability of the current scenario, with satellite and eyewitness reports showing a dynamic battlefield. For many countries, the events in Crimea serve as a reminder of the ongoing instability in Eastern Europe. The coming days will reveal how both Russia and Ukraine adapt to this new phase of conflict, potentially reshaping the geopolitical landscape for years to come. The role of technology in Ukraine's counterstrike cannot be overstated. Modern warfare relies heavily on intelligence, surveillance, and precision targeting, all of which Ukraine has leveraged effectively. Drones provide live reconnaissance, mapping out enemy positions and vulnerabilities in real time. Electronic warfare tools reportedly disrupt Russian communications, complicating coordination among units. Precision, guided missiles, and artillery allow strikes on strategic targets without excessive collateral damage. Satellite imagery and open-source intelligence platforms have helped track troop movements and verify the impact of operations. This integration of technology and tactics highlights a shift from traditional large-scale assaults to targeted, agile operations capable of creating outsized effects. Analysts believe that Ukraine's approach in Crimea serves as a blueprint for future engagements, combining minimal risk with maximum disruption. Russian forces, traditionally relying on fortified positions and numerical superiority, find themselves vulnerable to asymmetric strikes. The psychological impact is also significant, as troops face constant uncertainty, knowing that their positions can be compromised at any moment. For civilians, this technology-driven conflict feels unpredictable and terrifying, amplifying the sense of urgency to flee. Meanwhile, international observers are documenting lessons learned, evaluating how modern warfare evolves in contested regions. Crimea, once considered secure, now faces constant threats, underscoring the importance of adaptability, intelligence, and rapid response in contemporary conflict zones. The balance between human courage and technological advantage has never been more evident. Amid the chaos in Crimea, humanitarian concerns are mounting. Thousands of residents have left their homes, seeking safety in neighboring regions. Temporary shelters are overcrowded, lacking sufficient food, water, and medical supplies. Vulnerable populations, such as children and the elderly, require special attention, yet resources are limited. Aid organizations are coordinating efforts to distribute essentials and provide medical care. Evacuation routes are congested, and transportation is limited, complicating relief operations. Psychological trauma is a growing issue, as continuous explosions and uncertainty affect the mental health of civilians. The panic is further amplified by misinformation, with conflicting reports about the severity and scope of attacks. Governments and humanitarian agencies emphasize the importance of verified information and clear communication to reduce fear. Local volunteers are playing a crucial role, helping families navigate dangerous zones and reach safe locations. Despite the dire situation, acts of solidarity and courage emerge as communities work together to support those in need. The international community watches closely, considering ways to offer assistance and mitigate the humanitarian crisis. Protecting civilians remains a priority alongside military operations. Ukraine continues its counterstrike, while humanitarian agencies balance the urgency of relief with the unpredictability of the battlefield. Crimea's residents are caught in a precarious situation, highlighting the human cost of geopolitical conflict and the critical need for effective crisis management. Media coverage of Crimea's crisis shows both the scale of destruction and the human stories behind the headlines. Videos and images shared online depict streets filled with fleeing families, damaged military infrastructure, and chaotic evacuation points. Social media plays a vital role, allowing residents to report events directly and raise awareness of urgent needs. News outlets analyze the strategic impact of Ukraine's counterstrike, emphasizing the disruption of Russian military capabilities. Analysts point out that Crimea's defense is no longer unchallenged, signaling a potential shift in control over key regions. International media also scrutinizes Russia's response, noting delays and inconsistencies in official statements. The contrast between reality on the ground and official narratives contributes to public skepticism and anxiety. Observers note that real-time reporting increases pressure on both governments to act responsibly and protect civilians. The global audience watches as events unfold, with geopolitical experts evaluating possible scenarios for escalation or de-escalation. For Russia, media coverage is a challenge, as it exposes vulnerabilities and raises questions about preparedness. For Ukraine, transparency and communication demonstrate a disciplined, coordinated approach. The media focus on Crimea highlights the peninsula's symbolic and strategic importance, illustrating how modern warfare is not only fought on the ground, but also in the perception of international audiences. Understanding both the military and humanitarian dimensions is crucial for comprehending the broader consequences of the conflict. As the crisis in Crimea continues, the world watches a rapidly evolving conflict. Ukraine's counterstrike has not only damaged military installations, but also sparked widespread panic among civilians. The evacuation of thousands underscores the intensity and immediacy of the threat. Analysts warn that prolonged instability may create a ripple effect throughout the Black Sea region, impacting trade, energy, and security. Russian forces face pressure to reinforce positions while managing logistical challenges and declining morale. The international community considers humanitarian aid, diplomatic pressure, and strategic support for Ukraine. Technology plays a decisive role, with drones, precision strikes, and electronic warfare shaping the battlefield. Civilians remain at the center of the crisis, facing displacement, uncertainty, and psychological stress. Humanitarian organizations emphasize the need for coordinated relief and protection measures. Social media amplifies both information and panic, influencing perceptions and responses worldwide. Crimea, once considered stable under Russian control, is now a contested zone with profound implications for the war's trajectory. The coming days will determine whether Ukraine can sustain its momentum and whether Russia can secure its positions. Stay informed, stay safe, and always verify information from trusted sources. If you found this report valuable, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for real-time updates on the Ukraine-Russia conflict and global developments. Your support helps us bring accurate news directly to you.